Ghostbusters Afterlife has finally arrived! But is it good? What's happening, Ghostbusters fans? Welcome back to the channel. I am D-WIZZLE, back talking about some more Ghostbusters. I've talked about every Ghostbusters movie. I've talked about the original Ghostbusters movie that came out in 1984. I talked about Ghostbusters 2, and I talked about Ghostbusters 2016, the reboot to the original. If you guys haven't seen any of those reviews, I'll leave a link in the description below to those videos. You can check them out. But the time has come. We are finally going to be talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is the much anticipated sequel to, I think, the original 2 movies. For sure it's the sequel to the original movie. It came out November 19th, 2021. Alright, so it's been kind of a journey with this Ghostbusters franchise. If you guys have seen my reviews for the previous movies, you guys will know I really enjoyed the first Ghostbusters. It's probably one of my favorite movies. It's just such a fun time. It has such a unique concept. It was just, just a really fun movie. And we get to Ghostbusters 2. I wasn't the biggest fan of Ghostbusters 2. I felt like it was a really disappointing sequel. It just, such a dip in quality compared to the first film. And then, of course, the much infamous 2016 film. I didn't hate it. I thought it was just okay. There's an equal amount of things that I liked and an equal amount of things that I didn't like, but that movie caused a huge divide in the fandom, and I understand that. So when it comes to Ghostbusters Afterlife, once again, I didn't have high expectations for this because of how low, the bar has been set from the previous 2 Ghostbusters movies. At this point, I didn't feel like they were going to get Ghostbusters right. It's like they did 2 attempts and they weren't able to capture the magic of the original. And I feel like that's something that shouldn't be hard to do, but for some reason Sony, it just keeps dropping the ball. So when they were announcing that they were going to do an authentic sequel to the first movie, I was like, okay, that's interesting. So they're just gonna drop the the whole reboot stuff that they were trying to do with Paul Feig's movie, which I'm sure a lot of people were happy about. For me, I was indifferent. I was like, I did see slight potential with 2016, but since there was a lot of hate and it didn't do the best at the box office, I'm like, okay, we're probably not gonna get any more. That's fine. But as far as them doing an actual sequel to the original movies, I'm like, to me, it just felt too little too late because, as I said before, if they're trying to do another sequel with the original cast, I'm like, I think it's too late because they're way past their prime, the original actors, and I just don't want to see these old Ghostbusters running around doing what they were doing 30 years ago. So it's like I just didn't feel like we wanted to sit through that again. Like, it's the same thing with Indiana Jones and Terminator and the Star Wars sequel trilogy. So like, do we really want to revisit that trope again with the the actors coming back so old? But actually, there was some good news with this one because they weren't going to focus on the old actors. Instead, they were like, all right, we're going to actually focus on kids this time, just younger people. And I'm like, okay, cool, interesting, nice. And there were rumors going around that a couple of the new kids that they were going to introduce, they were going to be relatives to a couple of the old Ghostbusters. And of course, the biggest one we've known is that the main girl in the movie is going to be the granddaughter of Egon. That was going to be that was probably going to be like the main tie to the originals. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Let's see how this goes. And then the director they got for this movie, Jason Reitman. Yes, the son of Ivan Reitman that directed the original movies. Oh, and if you guys remembered, he did a little cameo in Ghostbusters 2.
My dad says you guys are full of crap. Jason?
Well, some people have trouble believing in the paranormal.
No, he just says you guys are full of crap, and that's why you went out of business.
So Jason Reitman, I think, is a pretty good filmmaker. So he's come from a more indie background. I think this is like the biggest, movie that he's done. He hasn't really done like big budget films like this. He's done stuff like Thank You for Smoking and Juno, which are really, lower budget indie films. So, even though I think Jason is a good filmmaker, I was kind of apprehensive to see if his directing style would work for a Ghostbusters movie. However, hearing that Jason and Ivan were working together really closely when writing and directing this movie, it gave me some optimism, that this would probably be something special. Because if the son of Ivan Reitman can't make a good Ghostbusters movie, I don't think anyone can, because this is the best scenario for this type of film. And it's like, it was lucky we were able to get, Jason willing to, fill in the shoes that Ivan did for the original. So I was all for it. The trailers, they looked pretty good. They looked really interesting. It had like a Stranger Things type vibe to the movie, and I'm like, all right, this is something different. They're not trying to, just rehash the same formula from the original, because that's what I felt Ghostbusters 2 in 2016, they faltered, is that they were keep trying to rehash the same things from the original. At least this one had a different vibe. It looked like it had a different story. It took place in a different location. We're not in New York City anymore. We're in this small town. So I thought that's really unique for a Ghostbusters film. So I'm like, I'm in. Let's go. So yeah, I saw this opening weekend. And what are my thoughts? Did this live up to the expectations? Did this live up to the hype? Did it fill in the empty void that was, laying dormant all these years with this Ghostbusters franchise? Is Ghostbusters Afterlife a good movie? Yes. Ghostbusters Afterlife is a good Ghostbusters movie. Thank God. Yes, they did it. The first thing I do gotta praise about this movie is Jason Reitman's direction. He didn't come to this movie trying to replicate the previous films. He went in here and tried to do something different from where it's located, from the atmosphere to the tone. That's something I just really appreciated. I like that this movie is set in a small town. It's a much different setting than in New York. Yeah, I like that it's in a small town because it makes the movie feel more intimate. And I did like the more childlike wonder that this movie had. Since this movie is focusing on kids now, that it does have like a Stranger Things, E.T., Goonies type of vibe, but it's not retreading those notes from those movies either. It felt like its own thing. And what I've said before in the previous reviews is that with the original Ghostbusters, while it did have family friendly elements, it wasn't just dumbed down for kids. It did have an equal amount of things for adults and an equal amount of things for kids. With Afterlife, you did feel like it was trying to tailor to a little more of a younger audience, but it didn't dumb itself down. I still feel like adults can enjoy this fine, but it's not as adult as the previous two movies, but it did have a nice balance between the two, and that's something I also really appreciated. But let's get into this cast. Of course, we got to start with the MVP of this movie. I'm sure a lot of people have been talking about her already. McKenna Grace as Phoebe. She was fantastic. Literally the best character in the movie. So great. She's just so likable. She's so charming. And she, it's not really a spoiler, she plays the granddaughter of Egon. And, I just felt like she really got the mannerisms of Egon so well. Like, she's an awkward nerd. She's, she has social issues. She's really into science. I just really felt like she encapsulated how Egon acted and how Egon felt. However, she didn't feel like an exact replica of Egon. She felt like her own character. But yeah, I just loved just seeing how she interacts with other people, how she gets into her sciencey stuff. I just really loved it. And even like some of the, the awkward jokes she would do in the movie, she made them work. She's just so likable, and she had some of the, the greatest heart in the movie. She had some of the biggest emotional moments in the movie. Like you just really felt for her character, and I just felt she was great. McKenna Grace, I think she's gonna go far in Hollywood. Like I hope she does get more roles, because like this, I just felt that she was really great in the movie. And then you have Finn Wolfhard playing Trevor, who's Phoebe's brother. I thought he was pretty good too. Of course, a lot of people recognize him from Stranger Things, and it's kind of ironic that they casted him in this Ghostbusters movie. But I thought he did really good in the film. I do like the dynamic that he has with Phoebe in the movie, and like pretty much everyone in the film. But yeah, I really like the brother sister dynamic that they have, and Trevor. I kind of like that, they weren't like gearing him up to instantly become a Ghostbuster. He's trying to do his own thing. He doesn't even care about ghosts that much. He just wants to live his own life. He's a teenager, so he's, dealing with teenager things, and, I did find that stuff pretty interesting. Though he did become really important by the time, the ghost stuff happens. He does incorporate with the ghost busting, but it's like, I like that they gave him a different journey from Phoebe, who was really interested in like the ghost stuff and Egon's past and stuff like that. And then we have Podcast, played by Logan Kim. He was really good as well. He's the eccentric one of the group. He's all about conspiracy theories, and he has his own podcast talking about it. I guess that's why I call him Podcast. But like, I really liked him. He was really funny. You could tell he was the comic relief of the film, but it didn't feel too much. I felt like, his eccentric nature really felt charming and, likable, and I really liked his chemistry that he has with Phoebe. I like that they befriended each other when they have class together and stuff like that, and then eventually they go off and do their own thing with ghost hunting or whatever.
Oh my gosh!
Did I hit it?
You didn't hit it! You destroyed it!
So I really found him very likable. And he has a whole bunch of tech stuff that he has, whatever, and he helps with Phoebe and the rest when the ghost stuff happens. So I really liked his character. And then we have Celestia O'Connor playing Lucky. I thought she was pretty solid. I didn't feel like she had as much development as the other three kids, but I still found her pretty likable. Like for the majority of the film, she was pretty much the crush of Trevor, and that storyline I thought was nice. It was, I did like the flirting and stuff that Trevor and Lucky had throughout the movie, kind of like thereof, like playing hard to get or whatever. I did find that charming, but I did wish that we got to know Lucky a little bit more. Like we didn't really get to know her as a character that as much. Like pretty much just know that she's the daughter of the sheriff in the town, and she works at a fast food joint, and she doesn't like being in a small town anymore. She wants to be in a huge town. I mean, so there was some stuff here and there. I just wish there was more, because the other three kids, like, you felt like you actually got to know them as people. But not to say that Lucky didn't feel like a person. It's just like I just wish there was more development with her, pretty much. But she was fine. She was fine. And then Carrie Coon as Callie, who is of course the daughter of Egon, and of course Phoebe and Trevor's mother. She was actually pretty good. And they're just introducing this family conflict of Egon like leaving their family and him passing away. They haven't seen him in years, and like pretty much Egon didn't leave anything to their names. Like this whole family conflict, like this is something they just introduced in this movie. There was nothing that that built to this in the previous films, and they really did a good job with me being invested in that, with the whole thing of Egon's daughter not feeling that she was loved by Egon. But I thought that whole thing was just really compelling. And then her trying, struggling to, make ends meet, and, trying to take care of Trevor and Phoebe. So it's like the single mother type type of issues and stuff like that. I just really found that compelling, because it's like just seeing how everyone is dealing with their own personal issues and them trying to deal with stuff together as a family. I really did like that whole dynamic, so I thought that was really good. And then we have Paul Rudd as Mr. Gruberson. He was great in the movie as well. First of all, you can't go wrong with Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is just great in everything that he's in. But I really liked him in this movie. He's the teacher of Phoebe's school or whatever, and he's also into the conspiracy stuff with the ghost, and he's into the science as well. And he gets a couple of really good scenes with the kids, trying to figure out the whole mystery in the town of how all these ghost occurrences and stuff like that. He's really ecstatic about all this stuff. Like he's also a big Ghostbusters fan as well.
We should probably get out of here.
So, I just found him really likable, and he was really funny as well. I guess he's another comic relief along with podcasts, but he was really good. He was definitely a standout. The ghost in this movie is the best they've ever looked in a Ghostbusters film. This is the best effects of any of the Ghostbusters movies. Seeing what they were able to do with modern technology, it blended really, really well. And they also had a mixture of practical effects in the film, and I really appreciate that because the practical effects in the original movies were really, really good. And even though I actually liked the effects in the 2016 movie, but I wish they had more practical mixed with the CGI. But in this movie, they did it. They had a really good balance between the CGI and the practical, and also the colors and the designs for the ghosts didn't look too cartoony. It wasn't oversaturated with color. It was just the right amount, and it looked pretty consistent with the original movies. But yeah, I really liked the ghosts in this film. They introduced a new ghost in the movie, Muncher, which I'm sure you could tell is pretty much trying to be the new Slimer of the franchise, but it was its own thing. Like, the design did look similar to Slimer, but it had completely different abilities. Like, the ghost eats metal and then shoots them out as weapons. So I thought that was pretty cool. What I really appreciated about this movie overall, for the first 3/4 of the movie, it did really feel like a character study. Like, it didn't really focus too much on the spectacle of the previous movies. It wasn't trying to be an action film. It was actually trying to get you invested in the story and the characters and the conflict. It was, for some people, they probably would think that this movie is slower than the previous films. But for me, I thought it was a perfect pace, Like, there was still important stuff going on in the film where you didn't feel bored, but like I said, it wasn't reliant on the effects and the action for the first 3/4. So that's something I really appreciated, because especially when you're introducing new characters into this franchise, you want to have time to actually care about them. And I thought they did a really good job making us invested in the characters. This really felt like The Force Awakens of Ghostbusters. I've heard that a lot. But, what makes this different from The Force Awakens is that, as I said, it doesn't rehash the plot of the original movies. It was trying to do its own thing, for the most part. Okay, so I've been praising this movie a lot. And it makes it seem like it's a perfect movie, great movie. But sadly, it is not. I did have a few issues with this film. This film is not perfect. Some of the issues I did have with this movie is that there are slight tonal issues with this movie. While I did say that there was a good balance between the lighthearted nature of the film and some of the the scares of the movie, I did feel like there was some tonal whiplash here and there. Like, he had scenes that were very lighthearted and funny. It's like comedic stuff like that, and then instantly it would just go into something that's really dark and scary. Like, you didn't feel like there was a natural transition into some scenes here and there. But it wasn't enough to be like it took me out of the movie. I just noticed they could have just naturally got us into the darker stuff better. because there actually are legit funny scenes, that appeals to kids. But then it just goes instantly into something that's really, really dark and frightening and whatever. I felt like in the older movies they had a better job of transitioning us between the comedy and the scary moments. Another thing, this was annoying in the previous movies, and I don't know why they're still doing this in this movie. The citizens of this film still don't believe in ghosts and still don't think that the Ghostbusters are legit, a legit corporation. I don't know why we keep doing this. Like the citizens keep getting amnesia about ghosts existing when there's been so many ghost occurrences between all three films. So it's like I just don't understand why people are still being like, oh, ghosts aren't real, or oh, that's a legend, or the Ghostbusters, they didn't do anything. I was like, it's just really annoying. That still happens in the film, and I just don't understand why they do it. It's stupid, it's blockheaded, and they need to stop doing that. And then another thing that kind of was weird is like with the kids, at first they don't believe in ghosts either. Though when there's like ghost occurrences happening to them, they're reacting normally, like they've seen this stuff before. So it's like they're not scared by it. They don't react as much as they should. They don't scream. They don't panic. Like when there's a bunch of hauntings and stuff like that, they're taking it really, really well. And it just kind of threw me off a little bit, especially because specifically Phoebe said that she doesn't believe in ghosts, but when there's weird supernatural stuff happening, she's taking it really, really well. So that was kind of odd to me. And then, okay, so here's the biggest thing, and I know a lot of people won't agree with me on this. It's nostalgia. The nostalgia I felt was really heavy-handed by the time we got to the third act of the climax. There was a lot of Easter eggs and fan service and callbacks, lines from the old movies that they just thrown in the climax of the film, the third act or whatever. And some of them I thought naturally worked into the story, but then there were some that really felt like they were winking and nodding to the audience a little too much, and I felt like the climax kind of suffered from that. This is not really a spoiler because this was in the marketing. Gozer does return in the film. You see the Hellhounds from the original movies. So, and there's other things that it implies, heavily implying that Gozer comes back. So that's not really a spoiler, but it just felt like a greatest hits when we got to that point. I mean, it was cool. It was nice to see from a Ghostbusters fan perspective. Like, it's nice to see some fan service. But if I'm thinking about it critically as a film, I just felt like the movie kind of lost me at that point because it didn't feel like a film at that point. It just felt like a nostalgia trip, and that's the thing about Hollywood, where they just need to be careful about throwing so much nostalgia into a film, because I feel like it really it makes the movie suffer a lot, because up until that point the movie was doing its own thing. It was grounded. It had relatable characters. It took its time. But when we got to the climax, it just threw a whole bunch of Ghostbuster stuff, being like, hey, remember this from that movie? Hey, remember this from that movie? Oh, remember that from that movie? I'm just like, it felt like overload at that point. A lot of people probably enjoyed the climax and stuff like that, and probably enjoyed all the Easter eggs and callbacks or whatever. But for me, I just felt like they could have toned it down a lot. And of course, there were some surprise appearances in the movie. I'm not gonna give it away, but I'm sure a lot of you could imply what it is. While it was nice to see, I wish they explained how they got to that point a little bit more. It just felt like it just happened, just because, even though they did kind of set up a tiny bit before that point, but I just felt like there should have been a little bit more. I'm trying not to give stuff away, But like, it just goes back to, even though it's nice to see, it's a nice callback. This movie feels like a love letter to the original movies. I completely understand that. But if you're trying to pass this to a new generation, you can't just throw a whole bunch of stuff that that casual moviegoers won't fully appreciate. So that's my only thing about the movie. But other than that, I thought this was a really enjoyable film. This is a good Ghostbusters movie. I'm so happy that they went back and was like, we're going to do right with the Ghostbusters fans. I really like the new characters. I really like the new setting of them being in a small town. I like that it's more character driven. I like that we're following kids now. They're passing the torch to a new generation, and it's done properly. I really appreciate that. And Jason Reitman directed this movie really, really well. And if this is the last Ghostbusters movie, I'll be satisfied. But it does leave the door open for more adventures to come, and I would really like to see more from this cast if they do more Ghostbusters films. So I'm up for sequels. What I also will say is the send-off that they do for Harold Ramis was absolutely beautiful. It was fantastic. At first it was a little weird. It was a little strange. But, seeing how it's executed, it was great. I heard a lot of people were crying at the end, and I totally understand why. Like, what they did for Harold Ramis at the end was great. But yeah, overall, I will say that Ghostbusters Afterlife is pretty good. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife. What did you guys think about it? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys think it was okay? Comment below and let me know.
Hey guys, so I just realized after I finished recording that I forgot to mention, for those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, please stay till after the credits. There are 2 scenes that I think hardcore Ghostbusters fans will really enjoy, and they're both just really fun credit scenes, so don't forget. If you guys haven't seen the movie yet and you plan to, don't forget to stay after the credits for those 2 scenes.
I might cover some other Ghostbusters stuff in the future. I might cover the shows and maybe the video game at some point. So it's not going to end with Afterlife, I'm pretty sure, because I'm always down to talk about more Ghostbusters. But thank you guys for watching my Ghostbusters reviews. I hope you guys enjoyed them. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell if you want to be notified on future videos I'll be doing. But that's all I have for you Ghostbusters fans, and I will see you guys in the next one. Talk to you guys later, and remember, I ain't afraid of no ghosts.